Good morning, Force followers. Happy Thursday. I am going to wait a minute and see if some people hop on since I was late. Hopefully, they were waiting. Okay. All right. Welcome to Force TV and Happy New Year. Happy 2021. My name is Brittany Arduini, and I'm the director of Houston Force Volleyball. I host Force TV every Thursday morning right here on Facebook, and I talk about all things volleyball. My son is in the background again today, so you might hear Bo. He might cheer, he might talk, he might do anything, but hopefully he doesn't scream. But that's my life. So in 2021, I've decided to take Force TV and run with it. I am planning on doing what you would see on TV, seasons and episodes within those seasons. So today's episode is season 1, episode 1, and the season will be about 8 episodes long. And to this first season, I'm going to do all things recruiting. So we'll do 8 episodes of recruiting. Today we're going to talk with a special guest, and then I'm thinking in the following weeks, we're going to do things like the athlete's resume, recruiting and social media, YouTube channels. I'm trying to get on a former college coach to ask them what they're looking for when it comes to recruiting athletes. And then, things like what's the NCAA clearinghouse? What's an official visit versus an unofficial visit? And kind of get into recruiting over the next 8 weeks. So not without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today. Her name is Kara Hill, and she runs a recruiting service out of California. Sorry, Bo's distracting me. I actually met her via email. We follow some of the same business people, and we connected through an email where she had a quote from Jasmine Starr, who is somebody that we both follow and hopefully mentors us in our Instagram content. And so I reached out to her to see what she was all about. And here we are. I'm gonna interview her today. We're gonna talk about certain things recruiting. She's gonna provide us with 5 tips to start your recruiting process. And here we are. I'm going to bring her on. 1 second. Hi, Kara. I am saying that
Hi.
right?
You are saying it right. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Force TV. And I want to get to know you, and I want my people to get to know you. So if you could tell us a little bit about what your history is or what your story is with volleyball. How'd you get started? Where'd you go? How'd you come up in the volleyball world?
Well, I started playing volleyball when I was in 8th grade. I actually had grown up as a dancer and did gymnastics. So shout out to the dance world who turned me into a great athlete. When I was in 8th grade, I had a middle school teacher who had a passion for volleyball and had a very successful actual collegiate career. And I had asked him if he would give me some private lessons. I had heard through the grapevine about club volleyball, which back in the day, we didn't have the internet. So club was like a crazy cult. And it was like a who's who if you even knew about what club volleyball was. But Mark was so gracious and gave me some lessons. And then I went and I tried out at Ichiban Volleyball Club and made the top team in the country, actually, at the time. First time ever playing. They just loved my athleticism and just, fell in love with the game. Stuck with the sport, played throughout high school, played club. Unfortunately, my freshman year, a teammate's dad had molested and assaulted me. And so I ended up going through 2 pretty big trials. And I just had a lot kind of going on throughout high school. So I continued to play volleyball, but I didn't go off to play at the next level. I had been recruited. I signed my letter of intent to Long Island University in Brooklyn. I was supposed to go with a very close friend, and I wanted to start a modeling career as well. But at the same time, my legal stuff had not been finished yet. And I just wasn't in a place where I could give that commitment to a team, to a coach, and even to myself. So I ended up staying behind, went through a lot of therapy, and just figured some things out over the years. Reconnected with an old volleyball coach about almost 11 years ago now. And when I had reconnected, he had invited me to a tournament. And I walked in and I felt like home. It was incredible. The squeaky shoes and the whistles and the smells, I hate to tell you, but it was so great to see him and see girls playing and just see that love of the game. And so the light bulb had gone off. I was in a, kind of an interesting place at that time. I was able to start a business and I just went for it. I went home that day. Some of his teammates or some of his players were talking about recruiting and asking him if they had touched base with some of the college coaches that they were interested in. And then I ended up going home and calling old teammates, and I called my mom and I said, this is what we're going to do. Like, I'm going all in on this. So I called 100
Nice.
college coaches that week and started my business almost 11 years ago.
Wow, that's awesome. That's such a
Yeah.
like just kind of like I don't know, I was kind of the same way with force, but kind of just a light bulb goes off and you're like, I'm ready to commit to this. Like, let's do it. Yeah, I love that. Just a little bit to kind of take you back. You said you're a dancer and a gymnast. I actually was a competitive cheerleader before I was a volleyball player. And I will always tell everybody that that made me the athlete that I became because I could coordinate, I was coordinated, I could jump, like all these things made me the volleyball player I ended up being. So that's pretty cool that somebody else thinks the same way when it comes
Yeah.
to dancing, and people would say that those aren't real sports, but I always argue with them about that because I believe that they are. Um,
Sure.
but cool. So 11 years, been helping athletes get recruited to play volleyball in college. And would you say that maybe this year has been the most difficult with COVID?
No,
No,
I
this
would
is
not.
not.
Well, it hasn't. Here's what I'll say. It hasn't been difficult for me because I built relationships over the last 11 years. Every college coach in the country knows us.
Yeah, true.
I built a brand. I have, nearly 1 million followers across all our social media platforms. And I've been, I built relationships. I put software in place and, provided tools for not only our clients, but outsiders that want to come on and explore Scout Scholar to, look at the recruiting process and maybe look at navigating it through on their own. I would say that there's been some challenges with recruiting because the college coaches can't get off campus to do any recruiting.
Right.
But I would say that the personal relationships that I've built over these many, many years has ultimately made the greatest impact in all of our athletes' journeys.
That's awesome. What kind of things are going on with COVID and recruiting? So, you know, obviously each division has a different set of rules when it comes to recruiting in general. But with COVID, I know that the Division 1 schools are on a dead period. I watched one of your videos, and at least currently until April 15th, and then you guys kind of alluded that it might be longer. Um, what, you know, what's D2 doing? What's D3 doing? What's NAI doing to kind of get through this time? Because I know that I spoke with the Rice coach a couple days ago, and he was like, well, we're done for 2021 and kind of pretty much done for 2022. So this hasn't impacted us too badly. But I know that D2 and D3, they recruit a lot later. So how has COVID kind of impacted them, and how are you, helping your athletes still be seen by those divisions?
That's a great question. In terms of recruiting, the most important thing that people can be doing right now is creating content, creating any kind of film content that they can get their hands on. And recruiting right now is all about, teaching these athletes how to run a effective marketing plan. And so, when you think about the recruiting process for a lot of Division II and Division III schools, a lot of times those institutions themselves don't have a major budget when it comes to travel, for example.
Yeah.
So much of recruiting has been, through film for them for many, many years. I would say that, recruiting has evolved this season, and the importance of being able to show coaches you're interested through email, through telephone calls, through sharing film has honestly never been more important in the history of recruiting. Like showing consistent interest in a program and working the phone as a critical piece in this.
Yes. That's always an advice I give my athletes. I always say that, you know, you're scared of the phone, so is everybody athlete in the country. And so if you're the one that can be different and actually get on the phone and talk to the volleyball coaches, then you're going to stand out amongst everybody else. And so I love that you're teaching that, because I think the phone is going to start to become something of our regular life again, and the kids need to get comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I skipped over a question, but you kind of addressed it. You have a recruiting service. Can you kind of dive into all of that? And like you mentioned that you have some software and things like that. So what services do you provide? How big is your athlete pool? Like, I mean, can you help my kids in Texas or in Houston? And kind of tell me about what you do with your recruiting service.
So I own a company called My Recruiting Solutions. Our website's myrecruitingsolutions.com. What we do that is unique is help athletes every aspect in this process. Everything from reviewing their high school transcript, doing a pretty thorough athletic evaluation, to creating a target list of schools based on what they're looking for academically, athletically, socially, geographically, financially. And then the last and one of the most important pieces in this is finding the perfect coaching fit. So what we do is really build a relationship with our student athletes and their families. And we want to, help them every step of the way, everything from helping with their email communication, knowing how to send an email. I'm not a fan of athletes sending emails that sound so generic, like, "Hi, coach, my name is Kara Hill. I'm an outside hitter. I play for such and such volleyball club." Like, I think you need to be unique and creative and engaging. And so we help our athletes with figuring out marketing strategies to stand out from the competition. There's 500,000, girls playing volleyball in the United States. And if you want to play at the next level, and especially right now, those days of a college coach stumbling on you right now are over. That's not happening. You have to take ownership of your future and run this very proactive campaign. And so we manage their video editing, provide step-by-step guidance counseling. We work with them on an individual basis. And it's myself and Coach Sam Walensky. Sam was a college coach for 20 years before she joined my staff. Actually, today is her 3-year anniversary, so I'm getting ready to post something in a little bit. But Sam joined me 3 years ago. And so together, we not only have personal relationships with just about every college coach in the country, but in addition to that, we help our athletes in terms of role playing and knowing what to expect on the phone, and helping families too. When you start this process, you're looking at, upwards of 2,000 college volleyball programs. And it's like, okay, well, where do I begin? Or what do I even do? And where can I play? A lot of times, if you talk to your high school counselors or you talk to your club coaches, you'll say, okay, well, I'm interested in playing at the next level. Sometimes I feel like the missing piece is, the feedback that the athletes are often given is, we'll create a list of schools. Okay, in Southern California, that list is USC and Pepperdine and UC Santa Barbara and,
Yeah,
so on. And in Texas, it's University of Texas and TCU and SMU. And you know what I mean? Like, it's always the big name
right,
schools. And you can't always play in those schools, and that's okay. There's a home for you if you want to play at the next level, but you can't expect an athlete to just choose schools that they want to play for, because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. You don't
right,
know what it takes to be a part of Jill's program at TCU or Baylor or any of those guys, right? Not only the athleticism and that physicality to be able to do that, but even the mental mindset, is this for you?
right.
So those are the things that we really work on a personal basis. We're not one of those companies that, is massive by the numbers. We limit how many players we can take on per recruiting class by position. And so we have, openings. And then we put people honestly on a wait list.
Yeah,
If we don't have room, then we'll wait list them, and then we'll come back to them as soon as an opening hits. And so fortunately for us, we're in a position that we can do that. And it's one of the reasons that I had invested in software, because I wanted to be able to touch and inspire families and be able to help people through this process one way or another. And so that's a little bit about our business. I started it, like you said, 11 years ago, and we've had, 100% success rate. All of our kids have had multiple offers to play at the next level. Average return on investment's been over 150,000, and we have athletes from all over the world. So we work with kids in Texas. We actually work with a few kids from the San Antonio area, from the Dallas area, Tennessee. We've got quite a few kids in the Tennessee area and Florida, and really all over the US, Canada, and we even have a client in Chile. So yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, one of
Yeah.
my 18-year-olds on our team, she's new to me this year, but I posted on our story that I was going to have you on, and she messaged me and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I love her." So she follows you on Instagram and I guess loves what you're teaching and what you're telling them, and I'm sure I don't even know if she's in your program or not, but she wanted to tell me that she loved you, and so I thought you might like that. But
That's so cool.
how many people do you take at one time? Or like is if somebody gets recruited, that kind of opens a spot. And so do you ever
Yeah.
have a like I'm trying to think of like an open period where you kind of take a big group, or is it kind of one by one, oh, we'll
No,
reach out to
so
you.
there's a flow every month. There's ebbs and flows. So as kids commit and leave our program, then it opens up more room for kids in other classes. And that's kind of how it works. Between Sam and she and I manage the athletes together. And so we manage what we can. Again, some of this has to do, so I worked with somebody several years ago to try and figure out from a time commitment perspective what it
Hmm.
would take to get somebody through the whole recruiting process. So we have some internal numbers that we use in-house,
Yeah,
but it's not something that we put out or share in the public.
sure. Of course. Yeah, and your time is just as valuable as everybody else's. So,
Yeah.
but what you're doing for the athletes, I think that's really cool that it's more of like a personal touch. It's not, you know, like sports recruits or whatever, and you're just a number that uses the website, and or you pay like astronomical amounts of money to get more one-on-one services. So I like that all you kind of offer is this personal touch to the recruiting process for the athletes. Um, so if somebody, I mean, we could talk about this at the end, but I was just going to say, if one of my athletes was interested in working with you, what would be the first step for doing that?
So they can visit our website, myrecruitingsolutions.com. That's our actual website where we provide all our services. Our software program is called Scout Scholar. So they can also create an account at scoutscholar.com, and we'll go on to Scout Scholar, and we actually call families that sign up for that service as well. So they can go to either either website. On My Recruiting Solutions, it shows like our list of commitments and athletes that we've worked with. So it gives a little bit more history and shows kind of the personalization or the personal touch to our recruiting side. Scout Scholar is more of a DIY program. So when you talk about an NCSA or a sports recruits or things of that nature, Scout Scholar is unique in that we are not another profile site. So I don't believe in profiles. I feel that profiles actually hurt you more than they help you. And let me explain.
Okay, please.
When a college coach goes on to platforms, oftentimes they will filter out certain categories. So they'll filter out players by size, or they'll filter out by specific metrics. And there's so much more to our game than your size and some of these numbers. And so I don't ever want an athlete to not have a shot of getting exposure, being seen by a particular program. And that's kind of what happens on those platforms. And so on our platform, what I wanted to do was give a tool that allows athletes to do research so they can explore the roster. They can learn key information about the school, and then they get the personal email address of the college coach. So we're not a DMing platform. We don't believe in this direct messaging system forcing college coaches to log in and manage another login and another recruiting website. On our platform, it goes from the player's personal inbox into the college coach's personal inbox.
I love that.
In the next 6 weeks, we have some really, really cool tools coming. It will allow an athlete to be able to track opens and video views, really get a full activity report. Every time a college coach opens their email, they'll get an instant notification on the app that says, hey, breaker, such and such coach opened your email or clicked on your video. So you'll start getting those instant notifications, which really, is exhilarating, right? But it empowers the app to stay in touch and to follow up and have some idea of where they are on somebody's list. So we're not a profile site. At this point, we don't even give college coaches login credentials to access. Many college coaches will share negative things about recruiting platforms. I think right now you're seeing a little less of that negativity because it's providing them a gateway to see athletes right now. So maybe there's a appreciation that they haven't had before. But on our platform, it's a research tool to allow you to identify schools, streamline the process, being able to email those coaches. It even provides access to their social media links. So you can dive into a program and get a history of them. So you can create a more personalized email to that college coach. And the direction that we're going is more of a CRM software management tool. And so it'll allow them to be able to create personalized emails to these college coaches, and within 15 minutes, they can get out that 60 to 75 emails instead of taking an hour to an hour and a half, where all of the font, all of the personalization, everything lines up. And so I'm really excited about that technology. It's coming here in just a few short weeks. And I think it's going to change the game in recruiting for athletes and really give them more time and, save money.
Awesome. That does sound really cool because I agree. I mean, I was recruited in a world where there was no profile sites, there was no social media and any of that. And so, I will say my mom did most of the work, but we sat down every week and we wrote out an email that was specific for me and for the schools and what they, I spoke to them in a more personal way because I cared about their, what was their record? How were they doing? What were I asked about the girls and their specific names. And I feel like we've gone away from that and maybe that coaches are, missing that. And so I love that you're giving the girls an opportunity to kind of find that information all in one spot so that it does save time, because that was definitely a time consume, was having to go to their website and do this and find all the emails. But we did it. And
well, the other thing that's cool, Brittany, is we offer the software platform free for clubs. So clubs can actually, with sports recruits, they're a B2B type business. They have B2C too, but they're mainly a B2B business. where they charge upwards of $120 per athlete. I know there's like a ranging scale.
Yeah.
But in our platform, especially through COVID, we've wanted to give clubs a way to offer a valuable tool to their players without having to fork out the money. I know one of the biggest frustrations in some of the platforms is, not every athlete uses it. Not every
Right.
athlete's interested. So sometimes you're paying for players that aren't genuinely interested in even playing at the next level. And it's hard as a business owner, especially through COVID, as so many of us have really had to embrace some major challenges over the course of this last year and even into 2021. So what's cool about Scout Scholar is it's free for clubs to use. You even have an app that allows you to communicate with your players. You can tag them. So as college coaches email you and show interest in any of your players, or if they're inquiring about a certain position in a certain class and asking you, hey, Brittany, what do you have? What's available? Right. You're able to literally open the app and tag some of your players, and bam, they get an instant notification that you talk to a college coach and they can follow up. So it's a really powerful tool, and there's no cost to you or to your players. Where there's an investment is if the family wants to upgrade to some of the services that I had talked about earlier in terms of wanting to know which coaches are opening their emails, viewing their videos, then they can invest in that in that upgrade. But otherwise, they can use the tools. They can send out emails and not have to pay. It's just if they want to know who's opening, who's clicking, that's where we're able to generate our revenue. So you're not paying for people that don't necessarily want to play or that aren't going to utilize the software.
Yeah, that I mean, I'll admit that's one thing that keeps me away from somebody like Sports Recruits, because I mean, I got kids that probably 50% of my kids on the teams don't want to play in college. And so having to pay for them, I mean, that's tough. So I do promote software recruiting things, but I don't ever provide them because of that. So that's very awesome. I'm going to probably get with you on that after this. So, I mean, all this information that you've been giving is awesome. But I asked you to come with 5 tips, and you came back to me with 5 tips to start the recruiting process. So I think we could go through those right now. I think people are going to be blown away, because I really do love everything that you provided. So what is your tip 1 for the never been seen athlete?
First thing that I tell people to do is to get evaluated. And so when I say this, sometimes you'll go to a club coach or a high school coach and you'll say, hey, coach, where can I play? And sometimes the coaches are very familiar with college sports and college volleyball, and they kind of understand, and they'll say, hey, you're a mid-major D1 type of player, or you can play in a D2 program. But, let's face it, there's a huge gap. There's some super high level programs, whether it's Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, with some amazing talent across the board. And so one of the things that I encourage athletes to do is actually, to go to their club coach or go to their club director and say, listen, who do I remind you of, and where did they go play? Because oftentimes, if you can get some feedback like that, that will give you some idea as to which programs and conferences you should begin targeting, and probably give you a pretty good gauge of where you are athletically. So the first step is really getting evaluated. And what we do is if somebody's interested in an athletic evaluation, they can purchase one. But what we do is we either look at film, or they come to our office here in Laguna Niguel. We have a volleyball court on the other side of that wall. And so we get in the gym and we actually work with our players and get a feel for their athleticism, their technique, their movement. And we'll tell them on a national level, like, hey, this is really where you are. And then we'll begin to ask questions about what they're looking for academically and financially. I think getting an assessment is just as important as beginning to figure out a budget for what you're going to pay for your kids' education. I think those things really go hand in hand, because when you're getting an evaluation and you're figuring out where you can play, then you got to have that come to Jesus moment. And you need to figure out from a parent's perspective, financially, what are you able to contribute to your athlete's education. Are you blessed and in this position that, dropping $250,000 on your kid's education is, awesome, and you can do it, and you want, them to go to a top academic school? Or are you somebody that's trying to keep your out-of-pocket expenses, under $10,000 or $20,000 a year? So we create a strategy based on whatever those goals are. But first step, by far the most important thing, is to really get an assessment, and you're reevaluating that assessment. So it's not like a one-time evaluation and then you're done, because
Right.
as you and I know as coaches, athletes continue to grow and progress. So you're constantly reevaluating and reassessing where those players are as time goes on.
And just to kind of understand a little bit, when do you think is like a good time in their career to start this process? To really kind of get that evaluation, understand where their starting point is, knowing that they could move, up if they grow in their skills in the game. But when is a good age or a good time in their career to start that?
So I highly recommend starting the recruiting process your freshman year.
Okay.
And the reason that I say that is it takes a lot of time. And sometimes you have to digest stuff. Sometimes you have these visions of maybe going off and playing for a Baylor, right? Or playing for a Texas. And, I think you need to kind of, again, I'll go back to the come to Jesus statement, but I think, really taking a serious look, it takes time for somebody to process,
Yeah.
Okay,
True.
I'm not at that level. So where can I play? Like, I know I want to play at the next level. So let's get real here. Where can I accomplish this? The other reason that I say to start your freshman year is that, when it comes to the timing, when you think about, and especially in Texas, when you think about high school volleyball and club volleyball and how they literally overlap.
Yeah.
When it comes to recruiting, you have to take some time throughout your career to visit college campuses and to really tour and figure out, looking at a big college experience, looking at some of these smaller schools, the time that it takes and really the financial aspect of investing to travel is one that sometimes takes time to plan and to process. And so starting your freshman year allows you, when you're going to a qualifier, or when you're going to a, JVA tournament, maybe you're going to Bluegrass or some of those tournaments, tour campuses, and don't just play the name game. Like, look at a bunch of schools that are in the area and start touring those campuses. So we say start your freshman year because there's ways that you can take advantage of the money that you're already investing in club volleyball and travel, and be able to see so much, and then begin to figure out, I love the fact that you can study abroad at such and such institution, even as a student athlete. And I think that's an important thing for me. You begin to learn so much when you go on these academic tours, and it's really a fun thing to experience. Mm-hmm. Because they really talk about the selling points. And so as time goes on, you begin to figure out what's truly important and what your perfect fit is.
Yeah, that's really great advice, because going and actually, or, being at home and thinking that you want to go to such and such school, that's only so much. But until you actually get there, you don't know if you're going to love the campus, or you're going to love the coach, or even what the school might be about. And so it's really good advice, because you don't have a lot of time. And so when you are traveling and doing those, tournaments, you can add a day, or you can go away for an afternoon and go do those. But you got to plan it. And it's not just like, well, let's just go do this on a whim. Like, I want to actually go and look at that school. And I love that. And so you get your 4 years to kind of well, not 4, but you get some years to figure that out.
The communication, there's a communication piece to this, right? Learning how to communicate with your club coach and your high school coach about wanting to play at the next level, and figuring out how to manage your time, because you are going to irritate someone when you pick up and go. And that's the other reason to start your freshman year.
Yeah, great advice. All right, so tip number 2.
You got to learn how to storytell. You got to learn to be creative and interesting and have fun with this process. So one of my biggest pet peeves, as I said a little bit earlier, is that same boring email that athletes write, or they put together this resume that truly no one cares about. Like, no one's clicking on a PDF to study every way that you've volunteered your time and whatever honors you have. And honestly, I don't even think the coaches care about any of the honors. I mean, this is about learning how to be likable and interesting and engaging. And that is the key to success. I have a client that I worked with. She is she's a 2021. She got a full scholarship to play at a Division II school in the East Coast. So Division II player, good player, not an exceptional player, good player. This player had 20 offers. And the key to her success was following everything that we said to a T, running a consistent campaign, and she told a story. And the reason that this is so important, and especially in COVID right now, this ability to be interesting and fun with your communication. College coaches, like everybody else, are craving joy right now. And so if you can be, have fun with it, stop talking about COVID. We're all living through it, right? It's Groundhog Day every day. Everybody is in the same place. We get it. It's a downer. Stop talking about how COVID is taking away your opportunities and talk about something positive and fun and interesting. Because if you can be compelling, and obviously you have to be targeting the schools where you can actually play, right? So this only works if you have the target list of schools. That's why that assessment is so important. But if you get that athletic evaluation, you know who you're targeting, and you're telling a story. Let's just say that a program, let's say you're in the class of 2022, and one of the programs that you're targeting decides that they're going to keep, because all these kids got an additional year of eligibility. Let's say that they're going to keep their players and they don't have a spot. What happens is, if you run a really, really good marketing strategy, your athletes, then these college coaches, it's a small community. Everybody talks to one another. So what you'll find is you end up getting a bunch of cheerleaders, a bunch of people that are rooting for your success. And if they don't have a spot for you, they may call 3, 4, 5 of their friends that they know are recruiting in your position and advocate for you. And that's so, so powerful. So learning to storytell is a really, really important tip as you're going through this recruiting journey.
I love it. All right, now tip number 3.
Tip number 3 is filming. You need highlights, and stop making excuses that you can't get film. I don't care if practice has been canceled. Film your basement, film playing in the snow. There is always a way to get film. I promise you this. But you need a lot of film, and you need a lot of highlights. There's a lot of myths. You go into different, group chats, and people will voice their opinion about how important unedited video is to college coaches. You need highlights to get somebody's attention before they're going to take the time to watch unedited video. Yeah. So you should never start your recruiting process sending out a bunch of unedited film, because the likelihood of getting somebody to sit down and actually watch your film is probably not very good, less than a 1% chance, really. So you've got to send out quality highlights. These coaches begin to, get some interest, create some engagement. And it needs to be consistent. At least once a month, you need a highlight reel. So whether that's a skills video, whether that's practice film, whatever you can get your hands on. I know that clubs right now are, concerned about their businesses and having to shut their businesses. So if it means that you have to put the film on unlisted because it's not, the super popular view to be playing volleyball during a global pandemic. So if you want to, protect your club, protect your athletes, protect your business, totally understand. Just create an avenue for your kids to get footage and allow them to post the film highlighted, unlisted. But on unlisted, so that they can get exposure.
So luckily here in Texas, we are playing. We're playing in practice, we're playing in tournaments. So at least my athletes should have no problem getting film, but I can understand where in other parts of the country, that could be an issue. So if you're listening from another part of the country, reach out and try and just personally get together with somebody to help you get those highlights, because I would have never known you should be sending that stuff once a month. But that's awesome. Like, it's kind of like, what I do here. Like I have to keep showing up. Every week I go
Mhm.
live, I have to keep showing up. You have to keep showing up for those college coaches. You have to keep showing them that you're, getting better or whatever your skills are. So good. Once a month, send highlight film, and then once they like and love you, they can watch raw footage, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so number 4,
Work the phone.
just like we talked
Um,
about.
but be prepared. Please don't call a coach and ask them if they have a Chipotle on campus. Like, do your homework. These athletes, sometimes they call. I get awesome calls from college coaches who are like, "Hey, will you share this tip?" That's probably the benefit of having so many relationships with coaches is they'll be like, "You will never guess what this kid did. I know she's not yours, but you should talk about this." So literally, I had a college coach call me and say, an athlete asked if I had Chipotle on campus because it's like the only thing they eat. I'm like, ooh, not a good one.
Not something you
So
really want to be telling a college coach.
no, practice, role play. Parents, you got to get involved here because the only way to get recruited right now is through, building relationships on the phone, through your email, and sending this content. So work the phone. We role play with our athletes for about an hour, actually, before they make a call. And that is really important. We go back and forth. We talk about all the questions to be prepared to answer, questions that they need to ask, help them with doing their research. What are some of the things that make that, school unique or interesting? Like, why would you go to Washington University in St. Louis? I just prepped a kid that was calling Wash U today, and
Yeah.
coaching staff, great people there. But we prepped and we talked and we found some interesting content on the website and, studied the coaching history. How long has the head coach been there? How long has the assistant coach been there? What is their history? I think all of those things are so important. So do your homework and work the phone.
Good. Yeah, and when you role play and like go through it before you actually do it, it actually makes you more comfortable. So you're not sitting there shaking, thinking like this is going to be the worst thing ever. It's actually not so bad. I remember making my very first phone call, but it was already to the coach that I had committed to, and I was still nervous. So I understand the nerves, but working the role play and getting the parents or somebody like you involved to help them ease the nerves, it makes it a lot better. All
Well,
right. Oh, go
I'll
ahead.
say this too, just one little thing. Record yourself answering the questions and go back and listen to them.
Ooh,
Because if you let's say you don't have anybody to role play or you're embarrassed or whatever, lock yourself in a closet and talk it over, listen to yourself actually speaking, and then you can go back and be critical. But saying the words, physically saying them, is a lot different than just mentally thinking it through. So
yes.
record, go back, and become more polished and articulate. That's a huge tip.
And something that I will add to working the phone is when you make those phone calls, don't be afraid to ask them questions too, because it's their job to know how to, in my opinion, to guide a conversation, but they want to know what you want to know about them too. Like, have a question for the coach, have a question about their program, what do they do, what's their philosophy, those kinds of things. So that it does kind of have a flow and it's not just a whole one-sided conversation from the college coach. So
Right.
that's my little input, I guess. And then, all right, our fifth and final tip for the starting your recruiting process.
Stay organized. Get on scoutscholar.com, create your account, and stay organized. Record when you're sending emails. Make sure that if you filled out a recruiting questionnaire. You need to stay organized, create tasks and reminders for yourself, and make sure that you're running this very consistent campaign. And so
Love it.
what I love about the Scout Scholar program is that it allows you to, keep tabs of everything that you've been doing.
Uh-huh.
And like I said, in pretty soon, in a few short weeks here, you'll also be able to track the activity of the college coaches as they engage with your emails. So I think that'll be really, really powerful. To the athletes that are going through the journey.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was in a different time. So there was no internet, but the one way that this is going to be ancient, but the way we stayed organized was my mom made a big binder of all the questionnaires as I filled them out. um, we would send them if they would send them back, or if they would send a letter saying, thank you, we got your questionnaire. She would put it in a binder so we knew exactly who we had contacted, who was showing some sort of interest. And so the fact that that your service provides that organization, that's fantastic, because it can definitely sometimes become very overwhelming. And our binder was like this thick. So, it gets time consuming. So that's awesome. So stay organized. All right. So get evaluated. And if you're a freshman, start now. If you're not a freshman, you needed to start yesterday. No, I'm kidding. You need to start now. And then learn to storytell so that you can get people to fall in love with you. Film. I'm sorry, my son's trying to tell you the steps too. Film, send your highlights once a month. Get on the phone, work the phone, talk to the college coaches, and then stay organized by using scoutscholar.com.
That's it.
Yay! I have to ask, you wear the red hat a lot, or you wear any hat a lot. What's the story behind your hat? Because I think your Instagram, IGTV kind of live show thing is under the hat. Am I right?
It is, yeah. So a long time ago, when I first started, I needed to find a way to have people recognize me at tournaments. And when you look around and you look at everybody that's in attendance, parents, coaches, everybody wears these polo shirts. And no offense to the polo shirt supporters and wearers, but that was not you're not going to catch me dead in a polo shirt. My recruiting solutions, that's not my, my fashion. So
That's
I
okay.
decided I needed a way for people to recognize me. And so for a long time, actually what I was doing is I was taking selfies. And so what's funny is, it's been a while since we've all been in the gym, like at tournaments and stuff, but college coaches would, kind of get competitive with each other. Even did you make the cut? Are you on Kara's Insta? But I wore a hat. My mom had bought me a hat, bought me a fedora for my birthday several years ago, and I wore it to an event. I wore it one time, and everyone's like, "Wow, you look great in the hat. You should wear the hat." And it just got me thinking. And the next day, I showed up to a tournament. It was a 3-day weekend. I showed up to the tournament the next day. I didn't have my hat. And a bunch of people were like, you know what? When I could see you from across the room with your hat, and the wheels started turning, and I'm like, I need to embrace that. I need a hat. I didn't want to wear the logo and, be all decked out in my logo. I just thought it was a little obnoxious. So I decided to do a fedora. I always wear a fedora. I do wear baseball caps too, quite a bit, especially in the office. But the red fedora is my go-to. I have more red fedoras than I care to share with you. I have quite the collection, but it's become a thing. And actually the college coaches will tell me that they prefer the red fedora over the other fedoras I have. So more recently, I actually had a college coach friend call me and say, I have not seen the red fedora lately. This was in October. And he's like, are you okay? Is everything okay? I'm like, I'm fine. I've just been wearing other fedoras. And he's like, no, the red one. I'm feeling the red one for you. You're going to have to embrace the red one. So I'm back to red and wear it religiously because it's been kind of a trademark and a way for people to know who I am.
I love that. And you're so right. If I was in a big convention center tournament right now, I would be able to find your hat. And that would be like, oh, there's Kara. I can go to court 52 and talk to her in 20 minutes because I know that's where she's at. That's awesome. I wouldn't have even thought of that when I asked the question. I was like, maybe it's just her thing, but that's a really great, I think that's a great business thing. Like, okay, people can recognize me now. So I love that. Well, Kara, thank you so much for joining me today. I think what you shared has been phenomenal. It's like I told you in my email, I could sit and talk volleyball and recruiting with you for probably days, but I am going to let you go because we've been going 50 minutes now. That's awesome. So anybody that has any questions or wants to talk to Kara directly, do you want them to reach out via Instagram, slide into your DMs, or do you want email? What do you want? How do you want people to get a hold of you?
I communicate across all platforms. So actually, you can go to our website, myrecruitingsolutions.com, fill out a consultation form. You can certainly DM me on Instagram as well. I'm a Volleyball recruiter. I don't check my messages on TikTok, so I don't even know how many messages are on TikTok, but we have a lot of followers there, and I don't check messages there. So if you want to connect with me, it's best to reach out on our website or DM me on Insta, and I will totally get it.
Really quick, I obviously follow you on Instagram and watch all your reels, which I love. Are you looking to do any of your recruiting? We call them showcases. I don't know what you call them.
Yeah.
Anywhere other than California this year?
Yeah, actually, I want to come to Houston this year. I'm doing something with volleyball in April. Prep Volleyball and I are partnered in events. I'm their education partner, and actually, I changed their entire format with recruiting showcases this year because college coaches aren't coming, and so everything is about the film and the content. So we're filming every quarter. We're creating highlight reels for every single player who participates, and we're actually emailing all. Phenomenal the opportunity. But I would love to come to Houston and do a big event. We've been looking for venues. I always partner with a club when I'm doing the events, mainly because we want to attract people in the community and have a vested partner in it. So typically I'll partner with a club in Southern California. I've partnered with Viper and T Street. I host a few at T Street every year. We've got to have one coming up in February. But I'm also doing all the events with Prep Volleyball. My event in Memphis that is supposed to take place at the end of the month has now been canceled. But we're probably going to reschedule. We're probably going to do something else in Memphis in maybe March. We're going to give this just a few more weeks after the holiday, obviously, because the numbers are up. So there you have it.
Well, we can connect about that offline, but that might be something that we could do with you or with a couple of the clubs here. We have some clubs that have really big facilities and have done some really great jobs at their COVID protocols and keeping people safe. So we'll see. I'll connect with you on that. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you on Insta.
Awesome.
All right.
See you online.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow, she was awesome, right? Like, that's some really great information. If you are playing this weekend, I will be going live in our VIP Facebook group for my Houston Force players and parents. Please join me tonight at 8:30 p.m. I will go through your schedule. I will go through AES, the COVID protocols for each facility, and what is being done for attendance. And I will see you in the Facebook group. Other than that, thanks for joining me today on Force TV, episode 1, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.